How about this day of news? Noon Eastern Monday, the legal tampering period in the NFL for free agency begins. I mean, come on, right? Funny how the deals happen almost immediately, right? I think we get it. About 12:05, the tweets from Schefter start flying. The bottom line, the ticker never stops seemingly all day. Players of consequence on the move at every position. Chaos of the most entertaining kind. The biggest move from Minnesota to Atlanta. That domino falls as Kirk Cousins agrees to term with the Falcons. This dude at every turn has absolutely crushed it from a money standpoint. 4-year, 180 with 100 guaranteed for a 36-year-old coming off a torn Achilles. I mean, every time the market is hungry for a quarterback, he's right there saying, I could do it. 3 new things on the new signal caller for the Falcons. Instant upgrade at the most important position in the game and in all of sports. He had more touchdown passes last season than the Falcons did as a team, despite the fact that he played in just 8 games. Atlanta didn't chuck it a lot, but there was a reason they didn't. He's going to work alongside new offensive coordinator Zach Robinson, who comes from the Rams. A good fit considering Los Angeles used motion at the 3rd highest rate last year. Cousins, the highest touchdown to interception ratio on plays involving motion. That's next level information, Steve. Move also gives the Falcons' young core of skilled players an adult in the room, a veteran presence. Their top 4 players in scrimmage yards last season, all 24 years old, the only team with that type of production over the last 40 seasons. Now, this is the biggest quarterback move of the offseason, draft included, in my opinion, in terms of its impact on this season. Cousins is approaching 40,000 passing yards and is a professional. I get that for whatever reason, people always line up to discredit him. I find that odd. How'd Minnesota do last year without him? Let's see how Atlanta does with him. I'm going to say it's significantly better. The running back market was cooking on Monday. It was going to be very interesting to see how the market got set. Most intriguing move to me, Saquon Barkley, not just because of who he is, but because of where he lands. Staying in the NFC East, heading to Philadelphia. The Eagles have had a bit of a rotating backfield in the past few years, and it certainly worked for them. Barkley gets a 3-year deal, could be worth $46 million, will be worth at least $26. That's guaranteed. That was the number he wore with New York. For all the talk about a lack of durability, Saquon played in all but 4 games over the last 2 seasons, ranked 3rd in rushing attempts over that span, 4th in yards per game. He managed those totals despite the Giants ranking 29th in run block win rate over the last 2 years. The Green Bay Packers backfield underwent a makeover Monday. They signed Josh Jacobs to a 4-year deal from the Raiders. Only 12.5 of that's guaranteed. That seems kind of low, doesn't it? They also bid farewell to Aaron Jones, who was entering the final year of a contract. Brian Gutekunst, their GM, called it one of the hardest decisions we've had to make in my time with the Packers. He was speaking of having to release Jones, which they did. Jacobs and Barkley headline a monstrous day for running back signings. DeAndre Swift goes to the Bears, just over $15 million guaranteed. Tony Pollard leaves Dallas for the Titans. He'll take over for Derrick Henry. Speaking of Henry, the Titans' all-time leader in touchdowns scored remains unsigned. Also, I'll point out for folks in this part of the world, excited that Austin Eckler is coming to town. Other side of the football, Raiders make an enormous addition to their defensive line. Christian Wilkins comes in. 4 years, 110 for 85 guaranteed. Swagoo, you played too soon, big fella. Wilkins, a career-high 9 sacks for the Dolphins last season. That means that Wilkins can team up with Max Crosby, and the Raiders now boast 2 of the best players on the interior and the edge. On a day of absolute mayhem in free agency in the NFL, Louis Riddick kind enough to join. Louis, it's been my contention that the Kirk Cousins movement, wherever it landed, would be the most impactful of any quarterback move, any quarterback decision or draft to be made. In other words, this is a talented draft class. I get it. Wherever Cousins lands next year is going to matter more for next year in the league. Does that align at all with the way you view it?
No question at all. I mean, look, when you look at him and what he means to this football team, considering how young this team is, Scott, he's going to have an immediate impact, especially on the offensive side of the ball, which is where really they need someone of Kirk Cousins' stature and someone who has his resume. Bijan Robinson, young player. Kyle Pitts, young player. Drake London, young player. An offensive line that's had a lot of money invested into it. His impact on this organization is going to be total, and it's going to be immediate. They're going to be talking about things from day one that are so advanced and put them so much further ahead in terms of the development of the organization, the development of the offense in general, that there's no doubt that you probably have to look at them now as being one of the favorites in the South, and maybe even a playoff, type of threat once they get into the tournament. Not just someone who gets there, but someone who could be a threat.
As for the running backs, I thought this was going to be fascinating, and it was to me. It feels a bit like poker. Across the league, guys weren't franchising. Guys weren't getting big numbers until today. Like, you look at the numbers people are getting, and Saquon stays in the NFC East, leaves New York for Philadelphia. Organizationally, they hadn't been paying big numbers. It was almost like plug and play at that position. That of all of them clearly is interesting. What'd you make of Saquon to Philly?
Yeah, look, this is obviously a very targeted acquisition. The onus really shifts immediately to Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore, the new offensive coordinator, in order to bring him into the fold and make him an integral part of this offense immediately. And that's on top of making sure that A.J. Brown gets his, Devontae Smith gets his, and that this offense takes it up another level, especially when you're talking about the play of Jalen Hurts. Okay, so all of this needs to work seamlessly because this is a big transaction, especially when you're talking about when it happened and at the price it happened, at the position it happened. It's totally out of character for them. It's one of those saying, we know that this guy, or we believe this guy can make an immediate difference, not just in our winning the division, not just in our getting to the playoffs, but we're trying to get back to the Super Bowl because that's the standard. That's a lot of pressure, man. So Kellen Moore, you're up.
Often talk on this show, Lewis, about the fantasy versus reality aspect of the game. And this was a big fantasy day in terms of players that pass the football, run the football, catch the football. But the dudes that block and the dudes that tackle are really important as well. We don't have them on our fantasy teams necessarily, but I'm interested in a move or two today that you say, listen, don't miss this. This is important.
Look, I'll start on the offensive side of the ball. In the trenches, at the guard position, Robert Hunt, who leaves Miami, goes to Carolina. He gets 5 for 100. He has Damian Woody sitting there like tweeting, going, what the heck is going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's cool to see that because, look, Dan Morgan gets it. They understand you better protect this young quarterback. Otherwise, you're going to run him right out of the league. Then on the defensive side out there in Las Vegas, Antonio knows this. We've got Max Crosby. We've got to get a guy as the 3 technique, the guy who lines up over the guard, that can wreck shop inside out. So what do they go and get? The second best defensive tackle in free agency if you eliminate Chris Jones, and that's Christian Wilkins. And so now not only does he push the pocket interiorly for Max Crosby, Christian's going to get his too as far as rushing the passer. And what did he get? He got over $110 million. So look, these are 2 big signings that are going to have immediate impacts right where it matters the most at the time of year that we all love the most, which is December and January football. Remember those 2 names, because if either one of those teams are prominent players at that time of year, a big part of it will have to do with the play of those 2 players.
Back in the day, Lewis, when your boy had a sales job and I got that commission check, boy, it was gone by the time I got it. That's what Monday felt like. Monday felt like we got this money and we're going to spend it. Good for the guys that got theirs. We appreciate the context as always. Thanks, Lewis.
You bet, man.
Back to all the news from the NFL. The Giants lost Saquon Barkley, but they make an addition on the other side of the football. One of the very talented edge rushers in the game, Brian Burns from the Panthers, didn't have to give up a first. Luke Combs was angry on Twitter. They got just a second in next month's draft and a 5th in next year's draft. They also swapped 5ths this year. The Giants immediately signed him to a monster 5-year, $150 million deal, 88 of that guaranteed. Burns carried the Panthers pass rush during his time in Charlotte, accounting for 28% of their pressures in the last 4 seasons. The only 2 that had higher shares, well, they're 2 of the very best in the game. Max Crosby, who we talked about a little bit earlier, and Myles Garrett. Quarterback news around the NFL. After dealing Mac Jones to the Jags, the Patriots plan to sign Jacoby Brissett, a source tells ESPN, turning the quarterback to the franchise where he began his career in 2016. The deal, 1 year, $8 million, according to Adam Schefter. He was a backup here in Washington a season ago, was a backup in Cleveland before that. He's demonstrated the kind of aptitude you want in a guy who could end up on the field. He has certainly demonstrated it. New England could use some help. Be a sizable improvement from what they've had. The 31-year-old's been better in very, very nearly every passing metric in the past couple of seasons than all Patriot quarterbacks in the last 2 campaigns. The Raiders, in addition to that Christian Wilkins signing, Gardner Minshew, Pro Bowler, $25 million, 15 guaranteed, 2-year deal. He'll compete potentially to be the starter, and it means a reunion with Max Crosby. We take you back to how he was heckled and tortured Week 17 last year.
Little last boy. Little last boy.
Dude, Max Crosby is so damn angry. Bro, he just...
But like the thing is, like, he's not really that angry.
I know, right? He keeps calling everybody little ass boy. I'm like, I'm little out here, but not always, you know?
All right. Coming up, big ass boy, Jay Billis stops by. I just figured if we're going to write it on the screen, I'm allowed to say it.